So it's 2024 now, and somehow I'm having Pheon conversations with people. This was like a popular topic almost now a year ago, but I really wasn't much of a content creator back then, so I didn't really have a place to yap about this. So I thought it'd be fun to look at Pheons back then, now, and see what really happened to why this Pheon war died out, and really look at how Pheons are affecting the game today. So first off, why did the Pheon topic die? I think the people who were like crusading for this back in the day, they just don't need the Pheons anymore if they're still playing the game. We're Lost Ark boomers here. We have our 5/3+1s. We don't really need to do any more accessories unless we get a rock for a +2. Your average endgame player doesn't need that much for Pheons. Yes, they might spend some on skins. They might be holding some for the next class that's coming out. But overall, the need for Pheons isn't there anymore because they already have their roster 6 all set up. And that segues to the next. We are the majority of the player base that's left. There aren't that many new players. As I've said before, Lost Ark is not that great at gaining and retaining new players. So we don't have that many people who are in this giant Pheon need that we once had. Back then, the community was super united on Pheons because we were all at that point. We all needed to set up our characters. We knew better builds and better accessories around the way, and it was only a matter of time before we had to replace them. I also think that when they did nerf the cost of Pheons on accessories, that absolutely did help pacify a lot of people. They just took it as it's a lot better than before. And then lastly, another big thing is we have much bigger offenders when it comes to just throwing away gold. So let's jump into that when it comes to Pheons and accessories. So you can buy Pheons in a pack 100, 30, or single. But I can't imagine anybody buys anything less than the 100 pack because they know they're going to need it eventually. Plus it has the biggest discount. So I'm just going to disregard the option of buying the other two when I'm talking about the subject. And keep in mind that this is a shifting price for the Pheon tax because it is dependent on blue crystals. So the current price as of recording this video is 2808 for your blue crystals. This means for your relic set, your Pheon tax is going to be about 25k. For a ancient access, that is going to be 50k in Pheon tax. When it comes to building your final build, spending an extra 50k to be absolutely down with the system, not that bad. Obviously, your final build is going to cost you a lot more because this is just talking about the Pheon tax. But still, you at least know with accessories what you're getting. You know your engravings, you know your stats. There is no RNG on this. Obviously, when you get to ability zones, that's different. That's going to suck. But let's compare this to legendary elixirs. You're going to drop 7 to 10k per elixir just on trying to get what you want. When you're trying to get your 40 set, and then absolutely if you're trying to min-max, you're going to spend so much more gold on this, and it's just an RNG system. So when you get people who have experienced these later game systems and then think about Pheons, the overall thought is, hey, it's not that bad. I've experienced, or I know there's worse. People had the hope that it was helping people not market flip. If you look at how they interact with binding, it's just nonsensical. Ability zones, which are bound when you buy them, still cost Pheons. Now, a strange thing is skins that have 3 binds on them, for some reason, they don't cost Pheons. So when new skins come out, there is a lot of people who buy things at 3 binds and then relist it at higher with 2 binds. If you are trying to make a build and you are marking accessories, you will see people flipping some that are a little bit, in their eyes, too cheap. The main point I'm trying to make is that because the coexistence of Pheons and the binding system, the logic just doesn't really line up if you want to try to say that this stops people from flipping. I cannot say for certain that the economy would be better or worse with or without Pheons. That is not my specialty, and I don't live in a second timeline where Pheons didn't exist in Lost Ark. This is just me looking at the rules that the developers have set for Pheons that just don't really line up with logic for the argument of stopping people from flipping. They've also affected how people gear and do content. When you are an established player, you don't really want to make a 5x3 placeholder build. You really just want to make your 5/3+1 and be done with that character unless you plan on parking it at like 1540. I rode some buses on my shitty alts and talked to people who ride buses, and there are a lot of people who do this. So they get their Algacia Power Pass. This character already has its relic set. They push it to 1490 and then they ride buses to get Brel gear and then hone that up to 1540 before making their build. Now, depending on what combination of 1-2s and 1-3s you ride, your total bus cost for this is going to be 19 to 20k. This does imply that you are running this as a 7th character, so you get the free boxes. Otherwise, you have to add that on top. But the point is that 25k gold is the current rate it's going to cost you to buy 100 Pheons, which you're going to need 75 to buy your relic set. If your goal is just to push a character through, it makes sense to just buy buses and then make a build then. Pheons also affect how people build in a sense that nobody really wants to make a mid build. because again, people are trying to make their final build, so that means they want the highest quality they can get. So it's basically to the point where people will buy things at like blue quality, they'll accept it, but anything below that generally is just seen as garbage and just has no value. Then obviously there's going to be a pretty big price jump when it comes to 90 plus quality accessories. So this has created a situation where accessories are just like really good or just utter garbage. Because of the design of having 2 engravings, a stat, and a malice on everything, it's really hard to buy a placeholder and then try to replace that in the future, because it might be hard replacing in the future trying to find the right malice, because you might just have very little wiggle room. So that's why when endgame players, when people are trying to make their final build, they're willing to spend above and beyond to just finally be done with engravings forever, basically, unless they get a +2 rock, or if they already have one, then they're absolutely done. But it wouldn't be one of my videos without me yapping about some ideas that I wish were implemented. The first idea would be just altering how the Pheon system works. As stated before, I don't think that things that are untradeable on purchase should have a Pheon cost. Amulets should also be put in that situation because people just don't buy them. If you look at sold amulets, most of them are just used for RMT. Pretty wild, but yeah, it's basically just an RMT item at this point. But also by this logic, that means skins with 3 bind should also have a Pheon cost. Sorry, not sorry, that's the rules. I personally would take a big Pheon hit on this, as I do buy a lot of skins because I make stupid choices. I think also reducing the cost of it on relic accessories would be pretty good. That would directly affect the logic that people use of going to 1490 and then going to Brel buses and just skipping building a 5x3 with relics. Granted, there'll still be a lot of people who do that because it's just a far lazier route to go for probably not too much of a price difference. I think even outright removing the Pheon cost from relics would actually be pretty good too. I think that would entice people to put a lot more relic accessories on the market for people to buy, because people would be more willing to buy these mid accessories for placeholder 5x3 builds, as opposed to a lot of these accessories that just sit on the market, relist like 3 or 4 times, and then people just dismantle it because they're sick of trying to sell it for lower and lower prices. And then my other idea is a bit in the other direction. I think every character up to 1539 should have a free 4x3. I think this would normalize having a 4x3 for content up to 1540, which is content that you absolutely don't need more than a 4x3 for, especially since content has gotten nerfed multiple times and we keep on having power creep. It would also give players, especially newer players, the ability to try out different builds on all their characters, try out the other engravings and see what they like more before having to commit. I think 1540 is a good place for people to start normalizing 5x3, and then I think generally the community pretty much normalizes 5x3 +1 at 1580 content. Unless you're a support, which people will take anything, which is why this kind of system would need a cutoff at 1539. Ultimately, I think that some Pheon changes would really affect the new player, the rare new player that we get, in a very good way, because they're only going to have one character with whatever power pass and event that we have going on, and then they have to do the rest manually. They're probably not going to have that much gold to really support alts, so I think some changes to Pheons, or even like that 4x3 system, would really help a lot of new players. And for us older players who have been around all this time, there might be more people who are willing to play alts because they get the free 4x3, they get cheaper builds. Even as a placeholder build, it's on an alt that they don't really care about that much, but maybe they just want to f around with it, you know? I think even something as simple as giving new accounts something like 500 free Pheons on their account just to let them gear up a few characters would be really good. Just bake that into the Makoko thing. Sure, it is not the greatest solution, but it affects the people I think who are most affected by Pheons, which are the newer players. And I think the topic pretty much died up because we have more relevant gold sinks that people would rather talk about than this. And compared to a lot of our other gold sinks, it's almost reasonable, but still, it's not a great system. So that'd be it for this video. Thanks for watching, like, sub, and I'll catch you next time.